Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I apologize for this funny sounding voice. I am fighting the flu and was getting really tired of laying in bed, so I thought I'd try doing a voiceover. If my voice bothers you, you can definitely watch the closed captions. Just turn those on. I pay to get closed captions done on all of my videos, so that's always an option. Okay, so let's get started with today's video. This is all about using your dies as stencils. In particular, today I focus on using layering die sets to create a layered stencil look. Layering die sets have a higher price point than others, so I think it's great to come up with new ways to get new looks from them, and this is a perfect opportunity. So I'm going to walk you through a bunch of different examples, and I hope you'll give this a try. I'm also excited to share with you a new tool that I've been using off-screen for some time. This is the new Pink & Mane Ergonomic blending brush. Now, Michelle, who owns Pink & Mane, sent me one of these to try a couple months ago, and I've been using it off-screen and I really liked it. Now that it's available in stores, I went ahead and ordered a few more, and I'm very happy with the results. Now, what sets this brush apart is it has a very large area that you can ink with, and it's perfectly smooth there. The brush also comes with a little holder that the brush snaps in place. I like this holder because it sits nicely on your desk, and you don't have to worry about getting ink all over your work surface or where you don't want it. But the best part about this particular brush is the handle. It's very easy to hold, and there are a few different ways that you can hold it. And because it's easy to hold, it's easy to control how much ink you're putting down. So with this large brush, you can get a light amount of ink or a heavy amount of ink very easily. It's very easy to control. Now, I know there are a bunch of different inking tools and blending brushes out there right now. In fact, I've done a video recently about some of them, and I'll link to it here. You can check that out. This one is just a bit different because of the larger area that you can apply ink with and that ergonomic handle. I also find it easy to remove the ink from this in between switching colors so that you don't have to have a bunch of these tools. You could just use one. Now, Michelle, who's the owner of Pink & Mane, mentioned that this is also a great design for anyone who has weakness in their hands or whose hands get tired when doing a lot of ink blending. So that's another thing to consider with this option. But all of today's techniques could be done with whatever inking tool you may have. I will, however, take the opportunity in this video to show how this brush works and how to best use it to get good results. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into my first card. For this, I'm going to just show you the basics of doing stenciling with layering dies. The layering die set that I'll be using is from Birch Press. It's the Flora Heart layering die set. I love the details of these layering dies. Birch Press, Memory Box, and Poppy Stamps have great detailed die designs. So there you can see what it looks like when you layer the 3 die cuts on top of each other. Such a beautiful look. However, another way you can use these dies is without using the die cuts on your project, but instead using the die cuts as a stencil. When I'm using die cuts as stencils, I like to use a lighter weight cardstock. So this is 80 pound. I just find it's easier to get the ink through, but any cardstock would work. I cut one of each heart, and then I have this white piece here that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm cutting one of the hearts from the top center. So these 4 pieces will be the stencils for my first card. On the back of the 3 die cut hearts, I'm spraying a pretty generous amount of Pixie spray. This is a repositionable spray adhesive that's perfect for holding stencils in place as you ink over them. After you spray them, be sure to let them dry for a few minutes before using them on your project. Okay, so now it's time to do our inking. Now, the cardstock that I chose to ink onto today is Brutus Monroe Not Your Mama's cardstock, which is a nice, very heavyweight white cardstock that takes blended ink beautifully. I have a piece that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm holding it behind our heart negative space piece that we created earlier. Into the opening, I'm placing one of our layered heart die cuts, the first one that has the biggest open areas to it. I'm just going to pop it right in place and then remove the negative space. The negative space just helped me to make sure it's straight and centered. Now I'm going to use a bone folder to really press that heart die cut down because I don't want it to move as we apply ink over it. This is a repositionable adhesive. It'll be able to come off when we're done, but we want it to hold in the meantime. Okay, now it's time to apply ink. You could use absolutely any ink that you want to here. I'm using a variety of dye inks today, and on this first card I'm using Gina K Designs Ink. I'm starting with a very light color, it's called Seaglass, and I'm applying it over the heart, making sure to fill in all the areas inside the heart die cut, but also put a light amount of ink around the heart so it looks like it has a halo when we remove it. You can see how easy it is to apply a light amount of color with this brush using a light ink. Once I'm happy with the results, I can carefully remove that heart die cut. And remember, I can use that heart die cut on another project. There you can see the soft blending that I get without any harsh lines. Now it's time to do our stenciling with the second layer, but I'm going to keep the outside of the heart as is. So this time I'm putting the negative space around it, and then I'm going to pop the next heart die cut in place. So this is the middle layer die cut. Now I'm going to keep this negative space on it this time so I don't end up putting ink on the background. I want to keep the soft blue background that I have. So I'm just going to go ahead and tape that into place. So here I'm popping in the second layer. It pops in easily and is a great way to be sure that I have it lined up each time. I then can use my bone folder to really press it in place. If you don't have a bone folder, just use something that will really apply pressure. It's often good to flip it over and apply pressure from the back too to make sure that it's adhered. Now I'm using my second darkest color, this is Blue Lagoon, and I'm applying this with a medium amount of pressure over the open heart. Now you'll notice that it blends beautifully. There is that one spot where I didn't blend it nicely. That's because I really don't need to blend in this case. I'll show you the trick to make sure you don't get any harsh lines in a moment. But in this case, I'm just filling in those tiny areas, and I just want to do it quickly. I can remove this die cut now and save it for another card. And now it's time to put in our third and final die cut. So I'll pop that in place, press it down. This time I'm using Lucky Clover Green. I'm switching colors, and I find the best way to clean your brush between switching colors is just to rub it off onto a dry cloth. And here you can see I'm just testing on the back that all the ink is cleaned off of it. Very easy to clean. In fact, I find it easier to remove the color than other brushes. I think it might be because how all the little bristles are even. I'm not sure, but it seems easy to switch between colors. I can now remove that heart die cut and remove our negative space and look at that smooth, even stenciling that we get. This would be perfect for a one-layer card, although I end up adding some die cuts to it in a bit. And by the way, these hearts that we used as stencils are great for another card. You can see how they layer nicely. So I trimmed my background down to be 4 by 5 1/4, and then I added it to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card that I made out of Gina K Turquoise Sea cardstock. I then used the Birch Press Handwritten Hello die set to create the layered die cut sentiment. I die cut the shadow of it twice from white cardstock, and then I die cut the word itself twice from the Tim Holtz matte black alcohol ink cardstock, which is just a very smooth black cardstock that has kind of a matte suede finish, and I think it just really stands out nicely. So I stacked those together and glued them to the center of our heart. And I also added a few iridescent gemstones just to catch the light and add a bit of interest. So you can see how easy it is to use layering dies as stencils instead, so you get a layered stencil look. Now here's another example that steps it up a bit and adds some stamping. This time I used a different die set. This is the Birch Press Folk Art Heart Layering die set, and I did my heart off to the bottom corner. So I have my nice piece of white cardstock for my inking. Then I have the negative space piece that I'm holding over it. This time again, I die cut the heart towards the bottom right. I'm going to just hold that there so I can add my first of the layered die cuts in. And I did spray Pixie spray on the back of all these die cuts so that they will hold in place. I just did it off screen. So I kind of pop that in place. Once I'm happy with where it is, I rub the bone folder over it to hold it in place. And now we can do our inking. Again, I'm starting with the lightest color. This time I'm using Pinkfresh Studio dye inks. Any ink will work here. Notice that I am dabbing some of the ink off onto my work surface first before bringing it to my paper. I think this is key with any inking tool you use because it dabs off that first harsh amount of ink and it prevents you from getting those harsh lines on your project. If you dab your ink off onto a glass or smooth work surface like I'm using, you can always go back and scoop that ink up so it doesn't go to waste, and then take that to your paper. But by dabbing that off first, it makes a big difference. Now I'm putting my negative space back in place because I want to be sure that I don't add any more ink around the heart. I just wanted that soft bit of purple. I removed that die cut and I'm adding the next one in. This is the middle of the layering heart die cuts. I'll press that in place, and now I'm using my middle shade of ink. So this one's Lavender. Notice I'm dabbing it off first, then bringing the ink to my paper. I start lightly, and then I can build up the color by pressing a little bit more firmly. I can always scoop that ink off of my glass work surface by dragging the brush through it, so that ink doesn't have to go to waste. And you can see the beautiful blending I get. If I forget to dab off first and I go to my paper a little too firmly, it might leave marks. Any blending tool would. Just make sure you start soft and dab off to the side if you need to. Now I'm removing that last die cut and adding our third one in place and using my darkest color of ink. Now I'm not taking much care to blend beautifully because all I need to do is put down a good amount of ink in that open area. Very easy to do with the larger blending brush like this. Okay, now I can remove my negative space, remove my heart die cut, and there we have our beautiful layered heart. Now I want to stamp around this, and I might have wanted to do that first, but I just thought of it. So I'm taking one of my heart die cuts. I put it onto a Post-it note and cut around the heart. So I have the perfect size heart in a mask, placing that right over our heart, and we're going to stamp on top of this. I'm using my all-time favorite background stamp. I use it in almost every video. This is the Simon Says Stamp You Matter stamp. It's just a great text background with encouraging messages that works great for many occasions. I'm putting my inked piece upside down onto it, lining it up so I can make sure my text is straight. Then I close my MISTI upside down, flip it over, and now I know when I stamp on it, it'll be straight. I'm using that soft lilac ink, the first lightest purple color that I used on my heart, and I'm going to stamp over that. Then I can remove my heart mask, and I have text stamping all around my heart. So you can see that just adds a little more interest to the simple card design. To finish the card off, I trimmed down the panel to 4 by 5 1/4 and added it to a soft lilac note card that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Although I added a few gemstones, I could have left this as a simple one-layer card by just stamping a greeting on top. However, I decided to add a layered die cut sentiment using the Birch Press Handwritten Just a Note die set. I like the message Just a Note because it could be used for many occasions. You just want to personalize it with your greeting on the inside. Okay, I have another variation for you. My next 2 cards show this technique of doing your layered stenciling, but then adding dry embossing on top for some texture. Okay, so I'm starting out very much like I did on my first card. So I have my piece that I'm going to ink on, and I'm holding the negative space over it, popping in my first layered heart die cut, and I do have Pixie spray on the back of that. This time I'm starting with Meadow ink from Pinkfresh Studios. This is a little bit darker for my first layer, so notice that I ink up my tool, tap it off on my work surface, bring it to my paper with a light hand first, and then I can start applying more pressure. And you can see how quickly and easily I'm able to get that soft halo of color around my heart. I'm putting the negative space back on the front of my card, removing the first die cut and putting in the second. This time I'm applying a medium shade of green. I always tap off, start with a light hand, and build up the pressure until I'm happy with the results. If I get lazy and I don't tap off and I just come to my card a little bit too firmly, I may end up with the harsh lines, but that happens with any brush. So the key is to start with a light hand, unless you start getting a little lazy and try to work too quick as I'm doing here. After I did the inking over my third heart, I can go ahead and remove that third die cut. And I'm going to take one of the heart dies, it really doesn't matter which one, and pop it right into the negative space. And we're going to dry emboss with this die. I have my tan embossing mat in my die cut machine. I'll place my inked piece on top, pop the heart die into the opening, and it'll pop in like a puzzle piece. Put my embossing plate on top and run it through. Most die cut machines can do this. You just follow the instructions with your manual. And check this out. Instead of cutting with that die, I made an impression with that die, and it lines up with our inking. And I think it's such a great way to add texture to this technique. I trimmed that panel down and added it to a note card, and then I added a stamped sentiment strip right across the heart. I also added a few pearls to the heart for some dimension. Now, if you've never done dry embossing with a die like I just did, I'll link to a video here that shows it more in depth. I went through it quickly here, but it's a great way to get more from your dies. By the way, the sentiment that I used is from this My Favorite Things Smitten with You stamp set. Thought it went perfect with that heart. I just wanted to show you part of this next card that I did. It's using the exact same technique as the last one, but I used the other heart die set, the Folk Heart die set. I did my layered inking just as before, but once I was done with that, I decided to add my dry embossing, just like the last example. So here I'll show it to you. I have my embossing mat in my die cut machine. I'm popping the heart into the negative space. Just got to wiggle around until it fits in. Put the embossing plate on top, and I'm going to run it through just like last time. I also thought it would be fun this time to have a heart frame around our inking and our impression. So I die cut with white cardstock, and I cut out the center pieces. So I just have the heart frame. I'm going to glue this right onto our ink and emboss piece, and it'll just give a nice finished edge to the piece. So here you can see I'm running my liquid adhesive around the outside edge, and then I'll pop the heart frame on there. It's just another option that you can do to add detail to the card. So here's the final card. You can see that heart frame and how it just kind of gives a nice finished look to our heart. We have the layered inking and the impression we made with the die. I finished it off by adding a stamped sentiment strip using the new Altenew Hello and Hug stamp set. I really like the stamp set and its coordinating dies, and you'll see me use it again later in this video. For my next two examples, I wanted to show you that layering background dies is great for this technique too. So in this case, I did layering of ink in the center only, so you can change up the look for this technique very easily. These cards feature the Honeybee Winter Prism die set, so you can buy each of these individually, and you can see how they all can be used separately, or you can layer them on top of each other for a beautiful layered look. Now I went ahead and die cut each from thin white cardstock, and I added Pixie spray to the back of them so I can use them as stencils. I'm starting with the one that has the most open area, and I added it to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of nice white cardstock. I'm starting with a light ink, and I'm applying that over the entire background. So we'll have a very soft pink pattern when we remove our stencil. And by the way, I'm sorry my lighting is a little funky right here. It'll fix again in a moment. Okay, so I removed the first stencil, and I can add my middle layer stencil. This time I didn't use Pixie spray. I didn't want to waste it. Instead, I'm just adding a little bit of tape on the side to hold it there. I also am using some purple tape to mask off a diamond area in the center. I'm just following the pattern of the die cut. I thought it'd be fun to only do the layering on a portion of the background. This time I'm adding a medium color ink. This is Candy Violet, beautiful pinkish purple color. And I'm applying that pretty heavily over the center. That's why I didn't tap off first. I wanted to get a lot of ink down very quickly. I then can remove that stencil and check out the cool pattern that's already forming. Now I'm coming in with our third and final background die cut and lining it up. I will then add our purple tape to mask off the same area as I did before. You can reuse these purple tape pieces many times. If you have ink on them, just be sure to wipe off the ink so you don't accidentally transfer it to something else. I applied a very heavy and quick amount of a blue ink on top. I like to mix the colors for this. We can remove the stencil and check out that beautiful background. It looks like it has a lot of dimension, but really is a flat piece. So I finished off the card by trimming my inked piece down a bit and adding it to a white note card. And I added some gemstones to the pattern just for some added interest. At the center, I added a stacked layered die cut that says thanks. I again used white and black cardstock, and that's from the Simon Says Stamp Big Thanks die set, which I use a lot in videos. For that little sentiment strip, I once again used the Altenew Hello and Hugs stamp set. There are many tiny little greetings here that you can match up with different larger sentiments. Okay, my last card example uses the same Honeybee layered die set. This time I'm going to ink up the whole background and add a little bit of glitter to it. So I'm starting with my first background die cut that has the most amount of open area, and I'll add that to my high quality white cardstock piece that we're going to do our inking on. I'm starting with the lightest color of ink, and you can see how easy it is to use this ergonomic brush to apply an even light color. Look at that beautiful result. Now it's time for our second background die. This would be the middle layer, lining that up with the inking I've already done, and I'm doing a medium color here. I'm starting very soft because I'm not sure how much ink I'll want to put down. I can always add more. And then it's time for our last layer die cut, putting a heavy amount of ink here, not taking too much effort to blend it. I just want to get a good amount of ink in those tiny openings. And there is our beautiful layered background. I thought it would be fun though to step this up a bit and add some glimmer paste on top or some glittery shine. So I'm going back to the first stencil, the one that has the most opening, and I'm adding Tonic Moonstone Glimmer Paste on top. This is clear with iridescent sparkle to it. I put some along one edge, and I use my stencil pal to drag it over the openings. Then I put some on the other end, and then I drag it the other way. This helps me to get an even layer of this. I then can remove that die cut, and we have glitter over all of our inking. After I let it dry, I assembled our card, and I'll tell you, look at this. I assembled my card upside down. I do this all the time. I thought I'd leave this in here. I'll just tear the note card off and add it to another so that I can use the card. But regardless, you can get a closer look of the background here, how we have the different colors of blue ink underneath that glimmery shine. It's such a beautiful look in real life. I also added some bold little gemstones to the pattern, and then I have a heart die cut for our sentiment. I stamped Sending Warm, and then I did a layered hugs die cut. Both of those are from the Altenew Hello and Hugs stamp set and die set. So the die set has the layering dies for hello and for hugs, and I like that it matches up nicely with that stamp set. So there you can see another way to step up this layered die cut stenciling technique to get a different look. So I hope you'll give one of these a try. It's a great way to create one layer cards if you want to, or just have fun with your different die cuts and inks to get a new look. If you are interested in the products that I use, I link them below in my YouTube description. I also have another couple videos here in the middle that might be of interest to you that are related to this one. Thanks for sticking with me through this video. I'm off to take a long nap now. I hope you have a good week, and we'll see you soon.